Hello everyone. Today I'm going to teach you how to paint this rose. I'm going to guide you step by step in detail on how to create this painting with watercolor. I'm going to start with listing and explaining all the equipment needed to paint this rose. You can start to paint just using 2 or 3 brushes. For this one, I use size 0. This round brush has a good elasticity. It means it will get back to its shape quickly when you lift it out of the paper, and it has pointy edge, so it's really good to work on details. The second brush I use is a mop brush. The edge is more wide, so it's good to paint wide area. The third brush I use is just a small pointy brush. For this painting, I use tube paint. I would just pick one color for the specific painting, so you would just focus on the painting itself. I think this is a perfect color to pick. This little saucer is really good to use one type of color, or you can even use a small ceramic plate. Now this is not coffee or tea, this is just water that I use for the painting. You also need 2 sets of paper towel. One is for you to put the brushes on, and the other one for you to dry the brush when you paint. And now we're ready to paint. When I start this painting, I'm not sure if I would like the ceramic plate more or the small saucer more. The small saucer will hold more water than the plate. You can start with putting the paintbrush in water, and then you just take lots and lots of water and put it on the paint. I'm not sure how much paint will I need for this painting, so I just put a little bit. But this is why it's better to start to work with one color, because you don't have to worry about mixing color. You just can add the same paint if you need more. It's better to work with watercolor in the flat table surface rather than a standing easel, so the paint and water can run through the paper without getting pulled by gravity. It is also good to know your layout, meaning where to put your painting equipment around your painting. So I'm just move things around and see where my hand is, and then later on I'll find the perfect location for each of the painting equipments. Painting watercolor comes with layers, meaning there will be first layer, second layer, third, and so on. The first layer usually really thin, and you put lots of water in a little bit of paint. Now it's up to you if you want to work with gradation on your first layer. You work with gradation, meaning the paint will be more dense in one side and lighter in the other side. The lighter part of the paint will determine where the light comes from in the painting. To make gradation, you simply put the brush into the water and wash the paint off a little bit, and just gently wash the dense part of the paint on the paper with cleaner brush. See how the color gets lighter by the end of this part of the flower near the outline. While the paint is still wet on the paper, sometimes I like to add a little bit more paint on the part that I want the painting to look more contrast. You can also use a second brush with a similar size to wash off the paint on the paper. I always wash clean the brush that I don't use and put it away for me, flat on the paper towel so it will dry. This is how the first layer looks like when it's fully dry. After this, basically you are going to repeat the same process that you just did on every part of the flower. I will be very careful to work with watercolor. I'll wait until one part done before starting to the next part. You can also start next part that is away from the first part, so the paint won't blend together when it's still wet. You can see how I jump from one part of the flower to another part of the flower that is away from each other, so the paint won't blend together if it's not fully dry. This is how the first layer look like when you're fully done with the whole flower. I left some white part of the flower because that part will be very light color. For the light part of the flower, I basically use very thin paint and just get that part done in one go. On the second layer, you will see that I use denser paint, meaning a little bit of paint, some paint with a little bit of water. And you can also see that I'm using a smaller size of the brush. At this stage, I'm also not sure if I would like this size of the brush. So process painting really just trying things out and see what worked best for you. I used the bigger size brush to wash the paint and make a little bit of gradation. At this stage, you already decided where the lighting come from onto this flower, so you can decide which part will be darker and which part will be lighter. For shadowing reference, you can also have a look of a real photo of a flower, so you can see how the light touch the flower and which part will be darker and which part will be lighter. On the smaller part of the flower, you can use just a small brush, and you can even get away using one brush to make gradation because it's not that hard to wash off paint on the small brush. One type of brush for this part works really well. I also find it easier to rotate the painting and change the angle you work from with the brush. It depends on your hand angle and hand movement and which side you are more comfortable to work with. This is how the second layer looks like when it's fully dry. You can see how I leave a little bit of light color part around the outline of the flower. That is just to add highlight, so it'll add contrast to where the lighting comes to the flower. On a third layer, I use denser paint, meaning adding more paint to the water. At this stage, you will have to know exactly where do you want the contrast of the color you want the darker side will be. To decide this, you can also see a reference photo to see where the darkest and the lighter part of the flower will be. Or you can even just play around and follow your intuition. I also like to use sharper edges on the last touch of the painting so I can see where the shadows goes from one part of the flower to another. So I just run the paint brush and don't wash it with another brush. This way you can get that sharp edges feel and contrast. On the lighter part of the flower, I don't use that many layers. I just use 2 layers. So one is the very light one and the other one is just slightly dark color. At the end, I realized that for this painting, I don't really use the ceramic plate. Instead, I like the saucer better. These are the 2 brushes I use most for this painting. So if you like to start with watercolor, these 2 brushes work well. And finally, this is how the painting of the rose will look like at the end. I turned out to be happy of the result of this painting. It actually turned out better than I expected. If you would like to start watercolor painting, you don't want to worry about to be able to draw, you can see the link on my short video on the description below. Give you a tip on how to trace a drawing on the watercolor paper. So really, you don't have to draw it yourself. You can go to my website and download free sketches. You can print directly on your watercolor paper. Use the tracing method. Please subscribe to my channel. It means so much to me. It will give the support that I need to continue making this kind of videos. See you again soon.